So now that you're actually in a conversation with a girl, the next step is taking that conversation from something platonic to something that actually is man to woman, is relevant to you and her, and is starting to move things in a more intimate, more sexual direction. Or at the very least, taking it from a conversation where she's just sort of like listening to you and not engaging, to a conversation where she's engaging with you, contributing, and getting invested in the conversation itself. So how do we make that happen? Well, mentality-wise, the first thing is you have to be willing to take the risk, okay? It's very easy sort of emotionally to have the platonic conversation, the conversation where it's like, you know how people say like they have their like bubble of personal space? I think that conversationally people have that bubble as well. It's like they're totally comfortable talking about politics or the weather or sports or something that doesn't relate to them. But as soon as you make it about them, as soon as you make it personal, that's maybe a little uncomfortable. However, those are also the best conversations and the ones we find the most interesting and the most meaningful. And so it's a question of like risk and reward, okay? If you don't take any risk, you won't receive any reward. You want to be smart about the risks you're taking, but you have to take that risk, okay? What you want to avoid more than anything else in game is what I call the half-hour conversation to nowhere. You do not want that phenomenon where you talk, and then she's like, well, okay, it was nice to meet you, and then you walk off and she leaves without ever knowing that you had a penis. Right? In fact, maybe even she leaves without ever knowing that you really wanted to engage with her in conversation rather than just making idle small talk, okay? Very, very, very important that you decide in your head you're going to bridge that gap. You decide you're going to escalate. If you don't make that decision, you will end up hearing, nice to meet you, nice to meet you, nice to meet you, until your head will fucking explode and you want to punch the next girl who says nice to meet you. And that's actually the process most people go through. They hear it so many times, eventually they get pissed off, and then they just decide, you know what? The next interaction, I don't care if she slaps me, kicks me in the balls, whatever, I just don't want to hear nice to meet you one more goddamn time in my life. And that's when they actually develop the balls to do the approach the right way. Okay, I'm going to encourage you to do it from the start. Understand, in order to get the reward of a good conversation that's man to woman, you have to take that risk. That's the first fundamental understanding of getting the hook. You have to do something. You have to create a conversation that is hook worthy. You have to create a conversation that goes beyond just the superficial. Okay? Beyond that, understand that getting the hook, essentially what you're doing is you're getting a reaction from the girl. And what do people react to? What do people respond to? Basically, there are two things. One is people respond to value, and two is people respond to threat. So anything they perceive of as high value in general, or anything they perceive of as offering value to them, they will pay attention to, they will engage with, they will respond to. Anything they view as a threat, i.e. it's a threat to themselves personally, a threat to their value, or it's a warning of some kind, they will pay attention and engage with that because it's just like self-preservation, okay? So first of all, you have to decide to take a risk to get their attention. Right? You have to decide it's worth it. It's worth the risk to get their attention. It's worth the risk to have them responding to you and engaged in the conversation. And if the conversation blows up, if they end up disliking you for it, that's fine. Be loved or hated, not merely liked. That's very, very, very critical. Secondly, though, understand what it is that will get a response, and that is high value or a threat. Okay? Value or threat. All right, that's the basic understanding you need to have in order to hook sets properly. So now that we've talked a little bit about the mentalities and attitudes that will get you hooking girls' attention on a regular basis, let's get down to the very technical, matter-of-fact, A, B, C, D, one step after another, ways that you can make it happen. And basically, there are three sort of tiers or three levels of effort that I think it makes sense to put into the hook. And when you can do it with the first, most minimal, most natural level of effort, that's always going to be the best. But when that's not working, which will happen sometimes, it's good to know the other layers so that you can make the hook happen, or you can really facilitate it happening and move forward into the interaction rather than stumbling here. And this is where a lot of guys, even really, really advanced guys, do stumble on a regular basis. And the great thing about the hook is that once you have it, once she's chasing you, once she's paying attention to you, you can kind of sit back, relax, take it easy, and let her game you. So after this point, in my opinion, a lot of the hard work in an approach is actually done for you. All right, so without further ado, what are sort of the 3 tiers that you can go to for hooking? Well, the first is to just self-amuse. Just completely like be yourself, be a high-value person, say the things you want to say, and most of the time you get the hook that way. And I'll talk in a second about exactly why that's the case. The next level is what I call FRED. It's a little acronym I came up with that stands for Focus, Relevance, Emotion, Decision. And it is very technically exactly how the hook goes down. It's a multi-stage process, and if you follow the process, you're very, very likely to get the hook on a very high percentage basis. So if it's not working by just self-amusing, you can use that. And then beyond that, we have some really technical, like old school, like structured game tactics that are actually very, very useful as well. So if even FRED isn't working, or if you're having trouble implementing the FRED model, these can work there. Okay, so there's sort of the most natural and actually probably best way to hook when it works, and then there's all the little like sort of cheats and little crowbar maneuvers you can do to get the hook if it isn't working. So first off, why does self-amusing to get the hook work? Well, first of all, if you are self-amused, if you are truly in your own reality, not in hers, that is a high value behavior. And as we talked about before, girls respond to things that are either high value or that they perceive of as a threat. Right? Also, the fact that you're self-amusing means you're very likely to say polarizing things. You're very likely to say and do things that might hit at her on an ego level. They might be very personal for her, and they might challenge her beliefs. So any of those things make them emotionally relevant, make the hook a likely scenario. The problem with self-amusement is it's not very directed. It's kind of all over the place, and it doesn't really follow a process. So a lot of times guys that just self-amuse, they kind of get the girl a little interested and then they go backwards. Or they get a couple of the steps, like they're relevant, but they're not actually getting a girl to act on that in any way. And so it doesn't really lock the hook in a firm manner. All right, so the best way that I think to go in and hook a set, get a girl into you, is just go in, say whatever you feel like, be uniquely yourself. Whatever it is you want to say it. Or if it's truly, truly offensive, say some fraction of it, but say something that's along the lines of your true personality and what you want to say. And most of the time, you'll find, especially when you're in a good mood and especially when you're really expressing yourself and loving your life, that will work very, very well. However, sometimes it doesn't, either because it's not the particular like blueprint of this particular girl, or it could be that maybe you're not warmed up, you're not feeling your best, you're not on point, you're not at your most clever, you're not like feeling like very high energy and value offering. In those cases, you'll find that just self-amusing probably will result in you not hooking sets. And this is why a lot of intermediate guys, they're like, I can have a really good night one night, have a really bad night the next night. It feels like I'm doing the same thing, I'm just getting different results. It's because their self-amusement works really well when they're feeling a certain way or like thinking a certain way, and then works really poorly at other times. So the next step I'm going to teach you, or a set of steps, is how to hook when self-amusement's not working, when you're not on, when you're not at your best. And for this, we have the more extensive hooking model that I've come up with, which again, we call it FRED, Focus, Relevance, Emotion, Decision. It's an acronym, FRED. Okay, so let's look at these stages, look how it came about. First thing I want you to understand is that a hook for a girl, like the girl deciding to pay attention to you, invest in you, chase you, etc., it's not a discrete thing. It's not like she has one moment where she's not hooked and the next moment she is. It's kind of a gradual process, right? It's a process of her going through a few different stages to get hooked. And these stages can occur instantly. You can say, hey, you come over here, and she like responds well and is like into you for your tone of voice or the way you look or something in your vibe, and comes over to you. She's done all those. You had her focused. You seem relevant enough that she's paying attention to you and caring. You've gotten some emotional commitment, and then she made a decision to come over you. You got all 4 stages of the hook like instantly. You got at least some form of hook right off the bat. Other times it could take 5 minutes where she's, you try and assert something's true and she's like fighting you on it, giving you shit tests, those kind of things. So it can go a couple different ways. All right, it can happen, like I said, instantly, or it can happen over 5 or 10 minutes. But either way, all of the stages of the hook must necessarily be in place for the girl to get hooked. So let's go deeply into what those are. First, focus. Focus is pretty obvious. You need to have her attention. If she's not paying attention to you, it doesn't matter how clever you are, or what things you say, or what you're conveying, because she's not a party to it. Okay, so her attention is first and foremost. In fact, in all of game, if you're not getting the girl's attention, that's your big fuck up, right? If you don't open, you didn't get her attention, okay. If you open so weak she doesn't turn and look at you, you didn't get her attention, not going anywhere. You need attention first and foremost. Very, very important, but I don't think I need to belabor the point. I think it's pretty obvious you need her attention. Next, relevance. This is super, super, super critical, okay? And the question you should ask yourself to know if you have relevance is, does she care? Does she care about what's going on? Is she just like paying attention to you because it's the polite thing to do and she's looking for a way out, or does she actually care? Is she actually bought into the conversation? And she can care because it's interesting. She can care because it's entertaining. But the best thing is if she cares because she finds it truly relevant. She finds either value or threat in it. And a little gimmick for this that's really, really good is to make it about her. And specifically, make it about her in a way where you're asserting something. So, for example, if I said, the weather's really cool out today, you may engage in that conversation, but you don't care all that deeply. You're not deeply invested. But if I say, there's this behavior that you do that's very strange, you'd be, whoa, what's that strange behavior? It's about me. Even if you didn't care about me as the person telling you it, you care about yourself enough that you want the information. That's truly relevant. And if I went a step further and said, and this is kind of getting into the emotion part, if I said, there's something so odd about you, and it's probably really fucking up your life. If you were to fix this, it would make your life much better. Now I've made it much more relevant. Now you probably care much more, and so you're even going to get deeply emotionally invested. So that's the idea, right? So the question is, do I have her attention? Does she care? Next question is, how much does she care? And what affects how much she cares? Well, one is how personal it is. Two is how credible of a source you are, how high value you are. And the third is if there are any ancillary things going on around it. So if you're dancing while talking to her, making out while talking to her, if you just got off a roller coaster and there's emotions flowing through her body, any of these kind of things make it more emotional for her as well, okay? So once you have her attention, once she's decided you're relevant, once she's given you a certain allowance of her emotional energy, once she's decided that she's willing to get that emotional, which is probably an unconscious decision to be fair, but when she's allotted you that level of emotional energy, at that point, most guys think they're good. And this is where most intermediate guys mess up in game, is they get the girl very aroused, turned on, feeling great, and they think they're doing a great job. This may have happened to you where you get a girl that seems to really like you. She's giggling at the things you say. She's complimenting you even to a certain extent. And then you take her number and leave, and then she flakes the next day. Well, what happened there is at the moment when you were talking, she had all these emotions flowing through her body that were very positive and were getting her very aroused. But then when you left, the emotions dissipated, because that's what emotions do. They're just chemicals in your body. And then when you called her, she had different emotions, different things flowing through her body, so she wasn't in that same state, and she didn't respond in the same way. Now, the next step, though, is super critical, which is get a decision. So if during that initial interaction, when she's in that emotional state, you'd been like, aw, you really like me, I appreciate that. And she's like, oh yeah, I guess I do like you. If she admitted to it, said she liked you, that's a decision. Or if you're like, you know what, if you need to run along and go do things in your day, I totally understand. I'm enjoying the conversation, but you can go anytime. And she's like, no, I'm good here, I'll stay for a little bit. The fact that she made that decision not to leave really cements in the set, because that's not an emotion in her body. That's not some intangible thing floating around that she hasn't recognized and accepted. It's an actual decision in the world. It's a fact, and it happened, and she can't deny it, right? It goes back to this principle of commitment and consistency, which is every time someone does something, they have to rationalize to themselves why they did it. Every time they don't do something or reject doing something, they have to rationalize themselves why they rejected it, okay? So as soon as she makes a decision in your favor, she's now starting to rationalize all the reasons you're an amazing guy, all the reasons she likes you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also, once she gets in the habit of making decisions, each subsequent decision becomes easier and easier. And that's actually what you're doing with this hooking model, is you're getting deeper and deeper levels of the hook, deeper and deeper levels of investment. So for example, in the first minute of the set, you might just get enough investment and enough decision from her that she's like, okay, I'll listen to this guy for a minute and engage in a conversation. Maybe 5 minutes in, you get, okay, cool, I'll join this guy for a coffee. Maybe 20 minutes in, you get, okay, I'll make out with this guy. Maybe an hour in, you get, I'll go home with this guy. An hour and a half in, you get, I'll let him, have sex with me, or even I want to have sex with him. And that's when you're really in business. All right, so you're going to go through this process of focus, which hopefully you keep roughly the entire time. Hopefully you're not losing her focus and getting it back, but you have her focus, and then from there you're doing things that she finds relevant. They're either a value or a threat to her, and again, like a good shortcut for that is if it's about her, that's very helpful, but there are a lot of things that are value and threat that are not directly about her. Then you're getting that deep emotion about it. It's not just this superficial, oh, that's kind of interesting. It's like, whoa, I have to hear this. Whoa, this is important. Well, I've decided that I'm willing to chase this. I'm willing to invest in this. And then you actually get that investment. You get her to make that decision. And when you get those decisions in your favor, that's when you have the girl into you. That's when you have the girl chasing. And that's when you can start to really amp up the set and take it in great directions. All right, so just to reiterate, best way to hook is if you just self-amuse. And the reason that's the best is because it's the most organic, it's the most natural. When you hook that way, it seems completely not try hard. And also it's good for your inner game. It's like the idea that you were enough and got her hooked, as opposed to you had to do something to get her hooked, right? That's the way you should feel, that you're the high value abundant guy, and good things with girls just happen for you for the most part. Then occasionally when they're not happening, you can use the technique if you have to, but when it just happens, that's the best. But if it's not just happening, if you need to make it work, look at this Fred model and think to yourself, kind of, where am I? what stage am I missing? And you want to ask, oh, that's kind of interesting. It's like, whoa, I have to hear this. Whoa, this is important. Well, I've decided that I'm willing to chase this. I'm willing to invest in this. And then you actually get that investment. You get her to make that decision. And when you get those decisions in your favor, that's when you have the girl into you. That's when you have the girl chasing. And that's when you can start to really amp up the set and take it in great directions. All right, so just to reiterate, best way to hook is if you just self-amuse. And the reason that's the best is because it's the most organic, it's the most natural. When you hook that way, it seems completely not try hard. And also it's good for your inner game. It's like the idea that you were enough and got her hooked, as opposed to you had to do something to get her hooked, right? That's the way you should feel, that you're the high value abundant guy and good things with girls just happen for you for the most part. Then occasionally when they're not happening, you can use the technique if you have to, but when it just happens, that's the best. But if it's not just happening, if you need to make it work, look at this Fred model and think to yourself, kind of, where am I? What stage am I missing? And you want to escalate and push it forward from there. Quick final note on the Fred model. Whenever you are escalating the stage, if you have her focus and you're trying to make it relevant, there's a good chance if she's not ready for that, she'll give you a shit test. She'll kind of question your frame or question the assertion you're making in some way, or question you as a person. And that's actually a good thing, okay? Because she wouldn't question you if she didn't think you were relevant in that category. Think of it this way. A girl wouldn't give shit to a 5-year-old kid because he's not relevant as a sexual being for her. But she will give shit to a fairly attractive guy who's maybe a little bit cocky because she wants to test and see if he's really all that. Okay, so understand that a shit test is a positive. And the way that you pass shit tests is basically just don't get emotionally affected. You can ignore it and keep talking. You can exaggerate it. Treat it like take whatever thing she's saying and just take it to a ridiculous extent to show that you like don't care and it is just silly. Or you can misinterpret, which is you turn it around and treat it like it's a compliment. So those are the way you pass shit tests. Just know, though, that you are likely to get a shit test when you are escalating through this process. And when she gives you shit, that doesn't mean you did it wrong. That means maybe you did it too early, but oftentimes it just means you did it right, and now you have another step in order to continue implementing the model. So be aware of that. Okay, so that's how to get the hook organically, and then how to get the hook when you have to like force it a little bit, when it's not happening completely organically. And the great part of that is that it makes it very, very reliable. Like I can hook sets probably more reliably than just about anybody, because when it's not hooking, I have a variety of tactics to get it to hook, and that's very, very important in game. All right, lastly in this little segment on how to get her attention, how to get her chasing, how to get her hooked into you, I want to talk about some really specific old school pickup tactics that can make this even more effective and even easier for you. First old school tactic I want to share with you is the push-pull. Basically what this is, it's giving a compliment and an insult at kind of the same time. So for example, if you said to a girl, "You're so pretty," it's good in a way because you're showing you're into her and you're showing that you're man to woman, you have a penis, that you're at least making it personal, so that's good. But the problem is you're giving away a lot of your validation. If you said to a girl, "You're ugly, I hate you," that can be good in a way, in the sense that it's definitely emotionally triggering for her. It certainly like hits her sense of relevance, and it's potentially her sense of threat as well. But the fact of the matter is, if you do all that all the time, you're just an asshole, you're just very negative. And also you're putting across these ideas that her initial reaction will be to reject. If you're putting across a lot of negative stuff, she doesn't want to believe that, especially about herself. So her initial reaction will be like, fight it, fight it, fight it, rather than accept it. However, if you mix the two, then you give a positive and a negative, well, now you're being a cool, nice, great person, but there's a little bit of, I don't necessarily have him yet. And there's also that emotional relevance that really makes her like, snap to attention and take interest. On the other hand, your negatives are tempered by the fact that there are a lot of positives in there, so she will actually take them to heart and consider them because they're packaged in with a lot of things that she would actually like to believe. Okay, so an example of a push-pull would be like, I love that shirt, but I don't really know if it's your style. Something like that. That's a very obvious one. Some others might be like, there's some things about you I really, really love, but like, I don't know, I just met you, I'm just not so sure about you yet, right? So it has that positive, but it has this hesitancy, this high value selective male quality, and also that little bit of a negative polarization that will definitely snap her to attention. So the push-pull can be a very, very useful tactic for getting her attention, for getting her to invest, and for getting her to really care what you think and treat you as a source of validation in the interaction. Next up is the neg, and this is similar to a push-pull in a way. It's sort of a subtle compliment that makes them a little bit insecure. A lot of people back in the day thought of negs as like insults. They're not. If it's an insult, again, like I said in the push-pull, it won't really be taken well. What it is, it's an ambiguous comment that makes them think about themselves. So it's not "you're ugly." "You're ugly" is not a neg, that's an insult, and that's not game. All right? But if you say like, "you blink a lot," just like in his observation, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing that they blink a lot, it's just an observation. But it's something that's going to make them sort of self-monitoring. It's going to make them conscious of their own behavior rather than focused in the outside world. And when they become self-monitoring, they start to evaluate, they start to wonder how you're perceiving them, they start to automatically put themselves in a position of lower value. Also, because these statements are about them, they are automatically of some level of relevance. All right, so those are examples of negs. What are some other ones? Another one could be like, wow, are you always like this, right? Which can be good and bad because you're talking to her and you clearly like some things about her, but are you always like this? It implies that there's certain things that you don't like as well. Okay, so that's an example of a neg. It's actually like kind of almost a subset of push-pull, but it's a very quick, like pithy sort of push-pull that's very, very effective. So it's worth mentioning. Next is what I call forced qualification, or just qualification in general. So if I walk up to a girl, typically the frame that she'll assume is the frame that she's deciding whether she likes me and I have to win her over. That's not a very useful frame to us as men because it puts us in the role of having to try hard and her of not having to try at all. So what you want to do in game a lot of times is flip the script and get her qualifying to you. So one thing that you can do that sort of simulates the hook, simulates high value, becomes relevant for her because it's about her, is to overtly qualify. So for example, if she says something that you really like or does something you really like, you'd be like, wow, I respect that. That's very cool. I wasn't sure about you, but I like that now. Right? So what does that say? First of all, it's a positive. She wants to accept the compliment. When you say, I wasn't sure about you, but I like you now, along with it, that little extra push-pull makes her want to qualify more. Makes her want to be like, whoa, why didn't you think that about me? What's not cool about me, et cetera, et cetera. And it makes her want to prove herself to you. And again, if she takes the action to prove herself to you, if she tries to prove herself to you, that's about the strongest form of decision you can get. Remember the model, focus, relevance, emotion, decision. Her deciding to prove herself is a huge decision in your favor. You can also be more just explicit about this. You can even ask the questions. Say, for example, you really like athletic girls. You should ask a girl sometimes, wait, you seem like you're in good shape. Are you athletic? Have you ever played sports? And then based on her answer, you can be like, oh, that's really cool. Or, oh, you know what? I thought I liked you. Now I'm not so sure. You can evaluate and assess and put yourself in that role, which makes her want to win you over, which makes her, again, make those decisions in your favor. Okay, so qualifying, whether like forced because you like overtly asked the question and threw it out there, or organic because she said something and you just found it positive or found it negative in a certain way, that's a very, very valuable thing that will help you get the hook. Finally, the last thing you can do that's really useful in hooking is what we call the open loop. And the idea here is that conversation, good conversation anyway, is not a linear thing. A lot of guys, when they talk to a girl, they're so focused on making it work and they're so focused on every word coming out of their mouth that they have one conversational thread that they're very focused on. And as soon as that peters out, conversation goes silent because there's nothing else to talk about. And then they work really hard, like, so, question about you, boring, etc. Oh, we're on another conversational thread, cool. And then they follow that conversational thread to its end until it really peters out, and they're like, oh shit, nothing left to say, let me throw something out. Now, on one hand, this looks really try-hard, which is terrible, right? But the other thing is, it's really hard to keep a conversation going that way. It's actually an effort to keep coming up with topics. What you'd rather do is let the conversation organically go in many different directions, so that you have many different conversational threads open. So maybe you're talking about, I don't know, you're talking about what you were doing as a kid, and you start talking about video games, and you start having a whole conversation about video games. And then you start talking about what it was like being in elementary school, and you start talking about how she got picked on in elementary school and wasn't as cool. And now you have all these different topics available to you. It makes it much easier to keep the conversation going, and it makes it more likely the conversation will continue organically. Also, if you want to take this to even a bigger level, and this is the true open loop theory, is when you can notice she's really into a topic, the natural inclination for most guys is to really, really talk about that topic and just burn it to the ground. Because it's like, oh, it's going well, let me keep doing what's going well. Funny enough, a lot of times the better thing to do is actually change the topic right when you can tell she wants to hear more. So if she's getting really, really intrigued, maybe at some point be like, oh, you know what, let's talk more about that later anyway. And she'll be like, no, let's talk about it now. And again, what is that when she says, let's talk about it now? She's saying, please talk to me. That's a decision to keep the conversation going, a decision to chase, etc. Okay? So when you have those high points, when you have those high moments in an interaction, it's a great time to escalate, which we'll talk about in the next couple segments, but it's also a really good time to pull away. It's a good time to pull away and let her chase the conversation a little bit rather than you being the one that's always chasing and always like making it happen. Again, her chasing the conversation, her investing, her when there's a silence, her filling the silence, those are all decisions, and that's what we're really looking for here, is for her to make that overt decision that she likes you and she wants the conversation. So I'm going to show you some interesting examples of situations where I had to work a little bit either to hook the set or to get the girl attracted to me. So I'm going to show you 2 situations where the girl's open in a very negative way and I have to turn it around. One situation of a girl that gives me a ton of shit tests that I have to plow through. And then I'm going to give you a couple situations where it's I'm past the open a little bit, but I'm just being generally attractive. All right, I'm just conveying attractive qualities to get the girl into me, get the girl chasing, one of which is a very high energy example and one of which is a lower energy example. So you get the whole range of experiences. All right, so let's have a look at those sets right now. Hey. Hey. Oh my God. Whoa, okay. That was a little, hey, whoa, hold on. That was a little extreme. Hi there, I'm sorry, I'm Todd. Nice to meet you. Are you I didn't catch your name, I just caught the shriek. I'm sorry, who are you? Nice to meet you. So all like jumping 3 feet in the air aside, I thought you guys had really elegant looks about you and I wanted to come say hi to you guys because you looked very classy and posh. And then you took that whole classy and posh thing and went 3 feet in the air with it, which was...
Get the fuck out of me. Too much going on in this world.
Really? Right, okay,
we haven't seen each other in a long time, so we were like, all day.
Really? Okay, hey, stop 2 seconds though, because I have to go soon, but stop 2 seconds and talk to the cute boy, okay? Just because. Who are you guys? You guys are freaking me out now, okay? Like, seriously, take a breath. It's okay, I promise.
I'm sweating. You're making me so nervous.
I'm sorry. Hey, I'm sorry. I know I'm, very overwhelming and stuff, but
wow, we really caught your eye this much, huh?
I'm down for adventure.
Where are you
Why
from?
not?
Are you visiting?
Am I visiting? Do you have an accent?
Yeah.
I live here now. I just moved to New York, actually.
You just moved here? Where
yeah. I'm at the moment.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It's actually more like Chinatown.
I'm gonna play a game of 21 questions. What do you do?
What do I do?
Okay,
Really?
let's walk and talk because we're in a huge rush.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Stay 2
We
seconds,
are.
seriously, because I have to go too. Okay, how do you guys know each other? You guys are super adorable together. I want to have like a collective crush.
Basically, we're getting pushed for a threesome right now.
Wow.
Well, that's what it meant, right? Collective crush on 2 girls.
I actually wasn't even gonna. I have this policy of trying not to get sexual with people in the first 2 minutes of knowing them. I try and actually get to know a person first. I know it's an old-fashioned
really
thing.
Inappropriate. We are in a huge rush though. We have to go to a premiere.
So you're English. What are you?
American.
You're American.
Irish.
Okay. Irish, English.
Yes.
Are you American or Irish?
I'm Irish, but I'm from America.
Okay. So I do want to have a crush on the both of you. You guys are very cool.
Thank you.
You have feisty expressions though. Like, you guys she's like full trouble.
What? Oh my God, this is happening.
Okay, so what's this premiere for?
Alright, Tribeca, and it really honestly helps.
I understand.
Gee, your hands are so
So
much
here's the
better
deal.
than mine.
I'll pick you, feisty face. Okay, so look. I wish I had more than 30 seconds to actually properly get to know you guys because you do seem quite fun and interesting. So what I want to do is I want you guys to come out and have a drink with me and my friends at some point.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, we'll give you your number.
Okay, well we'll do that.
Yo, what's your name?
Todd.
Nice to meet you, Todd.
That was awesome. All right, one second. Damn, there's so much shouting in this set.
I have a death grip on you right now.
All right. How could I forget? Okay, I will text you my name in a minute. Have fun.
Hey Todd.
Hello.
It's my friend Todd.
How are you? Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I thought I'd introduce myself by stepping on your foot. How do you feel about that?
Nice.
Not okay.
I like to impose myself on the interaction very quickly.
You gotta make the mark.
I like that. I like the general witticism and feistiness of this
little crew.
So you get
this little small entourage we have. This twosome.
Right?
Yeah.
Still in the middle.
I know. We were just like, we're
All right.
stopping traffic.
Should take like a quarter of a step this way and we'll be all good. Like come here.
You're right.
Okay, we're gonna feng shui this shit. Ready? There you go.
No back to doors right now. Everyone find a door. All
Is that
right.
actually a thing?
Good.
Go back.
Yeah.
I'm Asian. I
Because
didn't even know about
you can't be sitting down with your back to the door because what if someone comes in behind you?
That makes
Unless you've got a mirror.
Bad.
But that's also
So if you have a mirror that's like
bad. We need to sage this place.
You guys know way too much about this. You really do. I'm a little concerned, actually.
I'm sorry.
He was just trying to make a joke and you took it too far.
Right. I think in general, with all of us, let's not take things too far. Let's take things very slow. And I'm very shy, so.
What's your name?
Todd. Nice to meet you.
Ton.
Todd. T-O-D-D. Todd.
Todd. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. And nice to meet you guys. You guys are very cool. You guys are fun.
yeah.
Ish so far.
Ish.
Yeah, you don't really know it.
I mean, I don't want to make gross generalizations that might later be proven false.
Oh, okay. All right. Truthful. That's nice.
It is what it is.
Honesty is very nice.
You know, you want like the full like thought out version of that is thus far based on the extremely limited interaction I've had with you and my general perception based on inherent stereotypes on your attire and carriage. You seem like you potentially could be relatively cooler than the average chicks.
Wow, that was
Whoa.
quite a line.
Feeling good. Feeling good.
You like that?
I like this one. What was that? Did I really look that great? Thanks. Cool.
He didn't say look.
I mean, from the general perception of the something outlook. Yes, got it. Cool. Liked it. Liked what I heard. Didn't know what it meant, but I liked
Well,
it.
okay, so obviously you guys are about to eat that in a second, but like, what's your plan for the next, hour or so? Hey.
Good God.
I know. Hey, I'm sorry. No, it's just me. It's just me, not Christ. Just me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's a little extreme. Hey, just Todd. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hi.
You are, and I wanted to tell you guys that you're absolutely adorable. I'm sorry that the means in which I got your attention was a little shocking, but no, I noticed that. It's okay. It's totally fine. But I just wanted. Do you guys live here? Or are you? Okay. You're absolutely lovely, and I just wanted a couple seconds / maybe minutes to meet you and find out if you're as cool as your looks suggest.
Where do you work?
Where do I work? I run a business here in town.
What do you run?
I'm a public speaker, so I do like life coach and self-helping here, or self-help speaking, and then I travel to other cities on the weekends and do out there.
Okay. Just making sure you were a host, promoter.
Host promote? No, I'm not upselling anything right now. I'm not trying to bring you to any. If I were to try and bring you to a club, it's because I'm there and I'd like to see you there myself personally, not because of me getting paid for your heads, so to speak.
That's good.
I know you guys probably get that a lot when you're out, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So like I know the.
You know exactly how all that works. No. The only thing I have to offer is love, affection, and friendship. That's all I got. Sorry.
That's what you want?
Just the wholesome. What?
So that's what you want? You scared
Well,
me. I almost hit you. I was like, what the fuck?
really? That would have been funny, actually.
I probably would. I was like,
That would've been-
really, this like jump is
That would have been okay though, because that would be like a good story for my day. I'd be like, you know what? This girl hit me. It is what it is. That would have been chill though. That's what it is. Yeah, but no, I'm curious about you. Hey, excuse me. I absolutely adore your look. It's a very sort of casual workout chic, if you will.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. And you're very expressive as well. I'm Todd. Where are you? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
You, I mean, to be fair, you're a stranger, so who knows, but you seem cool.
Oh, thank you.
You are welcome.
Too.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a lot for me so fast. I'm very shy. But, did you just come from the gym, or?
I did.
Very nice. Me too. I, changed, but.
No, I like your shoes.
Oh, thank you. Look at you. You have an eye for fashion on top of everything else. Who knew?
Thank you. Are you from?
I was not born here, but you?
Where are you originally
And you live here now? I'd be like, you know what? This girl hit me. It is what it is. That would have been chill though. That's what it is. Yeah, but no, I'm curious about you. Hey, excuse me. I absolutely adore your look. It's a very sort of casual workout chic, if you will.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. And you're very expressive as well. I'm Todd. Where are you? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
You, I mean, to be fair, you're a stranger, so who knows, but you seem cool.
Oh, thank you.
You are welcome.
Too.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's It's a lot for me so fast. I don't know. I'm very shy. But did you just come from the gym or?
I did.
Very nice. Me too. I, changed, but.
No, I like your shoes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Look at you. You have an eye for fashion on top of everything else. Who knew?
Thank you. Are you from?
I was not born here, but you?
Where are you originally from?
And you live here now?
I do.
Okay.
I've lived here a little over.
Oh, you're newer than me. Okay, fair enough. I've been here too. So, I'm originally from Colorado. Moved here from New York, though.
Oh, nice. New York's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. Actually, I don't know. Well, New York's a very hot, dirty city this time of year, but has amazing people. I love. Exactly.
That's what I love about it.
So when you came, did you lose out on some of the culture? Are you like missing it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So it's definitely different.
Yeah.
It works for right now.
I feel like in New York you meet like attractive people and then you're like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I do this ambitious, cool thing. And here you're like, you meet ambitious, cool people. Like, well, I like stand around and look cute.
Really?
I mean, that's not what they say, but it's some form of occupation where that's essentially what the job is.
Yeah, that sounds about right though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So do you stand around and look cute? Did I just like vaguely insult you, or are you like?
No, I wish I had a job like that.
No, you really don't. You really don't. Trust me. Like you think you do, but you really don't.
No, I'm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like. She must be very organized.
Well, I try to be.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be. Yeah. I definitely have my work cut out for me. That's for
See,
sure.
I'm a disaster in that area. I run like 3 small businesses, but essentially I have people who are on payroll just to keep me organized because I'm so bad.
And once I can actually get to that point, which hopefully is within the next 12 months, I will have that person.
Really? All right.
Oh yeah. I need to do that too. It's a lot. What kind of, what industry are you?
Like self-help, motivational speaking, life coaching, that kind of stuff.
Oh, nice.
So think, like Tony Robbins.
Uh-huh.
Think like if he were completely not politically correct. That would be me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So less rich and famous, but also way less politically correct. I like to be like, cut the bullshit. I'm just gonna like be honest with you.
Very cool.
So that's
Life coach?
health,
Okay.
wealth, relationships,
Nice.
higher purpose, self-acceptance,
Very
be
cool.
happier, make more money, whatever.
So what brought you to?
Airplane. I'm just
I
kidding.
never.
I'm sorry, I would ask. Can I sit for a minute? What are you doing here today, actually? You're just like getting lemons. You have like a bag of lemons.
Lemons, and I'm waiting for the girl who writes on cakes.
Okay.
Write Happy Father's Day on a cake for me.
Aww.
Yeah.
You are just all sweetness today.
Oh, well, thank you.
Like legitimately, I came over here and I was like, I probably will hate this girl, but she's elegant and chic, and I have to talk to her. And now you're being all sweet. Why would you do this to me?
So, well, thank you very much. What brings you
The search for healthy food.
to for healthy food?
Yeah, I need well, this is gonna sound really ready for me to be all posh and frou-frou. I have someone who normally does my shopping for me, but he messed up and gave me like rotten blueberries, so I have to pick up some of my own groceries right now. So yeah, he got me these like tubs of like moldy blueberries. I'm like, I can't eat this. This is no good. I think like Trader Joe's or something. It was a reputable place. They just like, I don't know. Maybe he left them in his like the trunk of his car too long, and that did it. Here in Vegas. Anyway, so I'm here to just pick up a couple odds and ends, and apparently I'm here to meet a cute girl. If you believe in things like that. You have the most adorable smile right now, actually. Although you are blushing a little, which is good as well. Okay, so actually work in a profession, actually work out. What am I gonna hate about you down the road? Just let's just get out of the way now so I can not start to like you.
What are you gonna hate about me?
You're like nothing. I'm perfect.
Oh, yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
not the truth.
Messiah, you were just sitting in the cockiest manner that I've ever seen anyone sit in my entire life.
The cockiest? Why?
I don't know. It's almost hard to. You're like just like lean back, feet up, like wave some palm fronds on me and make my day. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger meets Mata Hari.
I'm just listening to music.
Hi.
Hi.
Wow, very businesslike.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. Who are you? I'm Todd.
Who are you?
Just a boy. I think I'm special, but I leave that open to your judgment. I try not to sell myself. Huh?
Are you here alone?
I am. I'm just walking through.
Okay. Just wondering if your friends told you to come over here or something.
No, I don't have any friends. I'm very shy.
I highly doubt that.
Well, I'm not shy, but I don't have any friends. I'm just obnoxious, so I make them all go away. Don't worry, I seem charming at first, but like it goes away quickly. It fades.
By telling me I'm cocky.
You what?
By telling me I'm cocky, that's charming.
Sure. Why not?
Interesting.
Are you charming?
I think that's subjective.
Yeah, for me as well. I mean, not everybody's into, intelligent, successful, charismatic, sexy boys.
Okay,
So if that's not your type, then I'm not charming.
I think I'm charming. I think you're cocky.
Fair enough. Should we just go with that instead of doing names? Let's just be like charming and cocky. Let's not ruin this with like names and facts.
Do you do this a lot?
Do what?
Like go up and talk to random girls?
Told you I'm very shy.
You're a liar. You're a cocky liar.
What should I do for a living as a cocky liar? I need to figure it out.
Be a lawyer.
A lawyer? Thought about that, but it's such a cliche.
What are you?
What am I?
Yeah. Or will you lie about it?
Wow, so much faith. So much faith. Scoot over. I'll talk to you for a minute. I have to go in a little bit, but you're not so bad. So as you watch those, you probably notice some tactics. You notice like the push-pull lines, mini cold reads, passing shit tests, those kind of things. But the biggest thing I want you to realize, and it's something that you might overlook if you're looking too hard at the techniques, is notice the vibe. Notice how I'm having fun. I'm not getting emotionally affected. That's the key criteria. All the techniques in the world are great, but notice the vibe throughout. Notice how I'm never flustered. I never care that much, all right? Because I do want the set to go well. I do care about getting the girl. I want to have sex, but I do realize there's an abundance of women, and there will always be another one if I mess up. So it's really not that big of a deal. Here are some at-home exercises you can do to make her instantly want you. What we're basically going to do in these exercises is simulate verbal formats, modes of speaking that are very likely to get a girl attracted to you, very likely to get a girl's attention, very likely to get her chasing you. And the way we're going to do this is by making it about her, making it something that is polarizing, making it something that is either value or of a threat to her. So these are just formats where almost any words you use within this type of speech is of that nature and will have that effect. And as we go through these, there will again, as in the previous section, there will be certain ones which require input. So for that, we're going to turn to television, YouTube, or in this case, we can use magazines for some as well. But we're going to need some external input for a couple of drills as well, whereas some of them you'll be able to do just completely by yourself. First drill we're going to do, there are two very similar drills, so we're just going to kind of introduce them together. The first is called Sex With Me Is Like, and the second is called I Like My Women Like I Like My Coffee. And the way these work is you're going to fill in a word, and then you're going to use sort of like a word association to turn a completely non-sexual object into something sexual. So for example, sex with me is like, if we were to use the word, say, roller coaster. Say, sex with me is like a roller coaster. It goes up and down and up and down and up and down. You could say, sex with me is like a roller coaster. If you write it long enough, sooner or later you're going to puke. Or you could say, sex with me is like a roller coaster. There are pictures being taken of you when you least expect it, right? Or sex with me is like a roller coaster. You ride and you ride and you ride and eventually you get off, et cetera, et cetera. So any of these reasons why sex could be like a roller coaster. Does that make sense? Next one is, I like my woman like I like my coffee. Again, you're using an object. You say, I like my woman like I like my coffee. Hot and black and strong. I like my women like I like my coffee, imported from Colombia. I like my women like I like my coffee, available on every street corner, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and obviously you can use different words for any of these. You could use, sex with me is like a chair. I like my women like I like my cars. Whatever it is, you can use any word you like. What I would encourage you to do, doing this exercise at home on your own, is try and challenge yourself to just come up with as many as you possibly can rapid fire. without pausing, without hesitating, etc. And just kind of let loose your brain and get your brain used to this sort of free association. Just start the sentence and let your brain try and finish it over and over again. Once you get to a point where you run out of things to say on a particular topic, right? You can't come up with one anymore, or you repeat, or you say something that just isn't making any sense anymore, change the word and repeat. So if you ran out of ideas for sex with me is like a chair, now you can be sex with me is like a lamp or a remote control or whatever else. For the rest of the exercise in this section, we're going to use some form of multimedia input to give us sort of a catalyst, an idea to start the drill with. So we're going to use either television, YouTube, or in the case of the next drill only, we could actually use a magazine. And the format for the next drill is you're so X is just like Y. It's what we call a mini cold read. But you're so X is just like Y. You're so cute, you're like my little sister. You're so fat, you're like a sumo wrestler. You're so colorful, you're like a Marx Brothers movie. And notice how that one didn't even make sense. It's totally fine. It made the opposite of sense. The point is, it doesn't matter what you spit out into these formulas. It's just that you follow the formula. If someone says to you anything almost that's of the formula, you're so X, it's just like Y. You're so attentive, it's just like you're in love with me, right? It automatically makes you go inside your head. It makes you think about yourself. It makes you slightly self-conscious, and that is going to make you reactive, right? And the person who's more reactive to the other in any interaction is usually the person of lower value, which makes the other person the one of higher value. So that's what you're doing basically. It's a good way to make the person introspective, put them in their head. It's a great way to lead the conversation. It can also be fun, funny, and interesting as well. Next exercise we're going to do is called That's a Lie. And for this, you're going to use television, YouTube, something like that to give you the idea of what we're working with. And the role we're playing in this drill is the role that you are a supercomputer from somewhere in the universe that knows everything. So any statements you make are with absolute conviction. It's not, I think this, it's rigorously proven that this. Or it's not, my opinion is this, it's like, this is a fact. Okay? There is no doubt at all, no wavering. You want to have a strong frame. So what you're going to do, watch a TV show, watch a YouTube channel, whatever. Let them make a couple sentences of statements, and you're going to jump in here and say, that's a lie, and then you're going to jump in and say something with absolute conviction. If it's something that makes sense, great. If it's something that's totally outrageous and out there, also fine. The only thing is, whatever you say, you have to say it with conviction. So for example, if you were watching a cooking show and they said, we put the green beans in because the green beans make it healthy, you could be like, that's a lie. Actually, green beans as healthy things is a conspiracy created by the United States Farmers Association, blah, 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 blah. Make sense? Something that tells you that. Or you could be watching a cartoon, and they'd be like, we have to go down to the meadow. That's a lie. Actually, the meadow is an enchanted valley where you just make up whatever fact you want, but you say it with absolute conviction. You want to go probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 sentences with this, just enough that you're, clearly showing your opinion, clearly telling some story, clearly having a perspective. More than 1 or 2 sentences in any case. Going more than that really is not the best use of your time because you've kind of made your point. So at that point, I would say stop, listen to a few more sentences coming from TV, YouTube, whatever, and then jump back in. That's a lie, and go again. The key thing here is your conviction level. Absolutely everything you say is with utter belief and conviction. Last drill for this section, and this is again using television, YouTube, whatever, and this is to learn push-pulls. Push-pull is basically a format where you're going to be giving compliments and insults kind of back and forth. So you might say, you look really good in that shirt, but it's too bad you're overweight. Or you might say, I really love that look on your face. It means you're very smart or constipated. I'm not sure which. Right? Something like that. So it's very positive and then negative. Or you can go negative, positive. Like, I absolutely hate those pants, but you kind of pull them off. You're in really good shape. So you can go negative, positive, or positive, negative. So what you're going to do for this drill is watch someone on TV, YouTube, etc. And what I want you to do is you can actually change the channel. Like change the channel, and when you see the first character on the screen, I want you to say the first thing that you think about that character. Don't edit it, don't censor it, just spit out the first thing you think. And then if the first thing is negative, you want to follow it up with a positive statement. If the first thing is positive, you want to follow it up with a negative statement. So that way you're organically creating a push-pull. When you get to advanced levels of this, what I would actually encourage you to do is do multiple push-pulls. So you might do a push-pull, push-pull, or a pull-push, pull-push. Okay, so that'd be negative statement, negative, positive. Just get in the habit. Once you get to an advanced level of game, you should really be at a point where at any moment you could give a negative expression or give a positive expression, and it's almost unconscious. It just comes super naturally to you, because when you have that tool in your arsenal, you can instantly calibrate at any point. Now we're going to talk about some exercises you can do in field to work on getting the girl attracted to you, hooking her attention, getting her chasing, that kind of stuff. And these drills are all going to follow kind of a similar format, which is that you're going to be in set doing something that may not be optimal game, but it's designed to highlight a particular mode of communication or a particular way of capturing a girl's interest. So what you're going to do is go do your game normally, except for you're going to be focusing on emphasizing a particular thing. So that's the format for all these drills. The only difference will be that we'll be focusing and emphasizing different things in each drill. First exercise is designed to help you create non-linear conversations. A lot of guys are very logical in the way we talk. We have an outcome in mind, we communicate to get a point across, and we're not communicating on a very emotional level, and we're very much like, I want to get my point, I want my point, I want my point. And we don't allow the conversation to flow in various directions. However, you may have noticed that when you have a great conversation with your friends, the kind where you like stay up all night and don't know what really happened, like you don't really know what you talked about a variety of different topics. Same is when you have talked to girls and it's gone really well. You probably have talked about a variety of different topics. It's kind of gone organically in different directions as opposed to being a very linear, logical conversation. So what we're going to do here is we're going to simulate that non-linear, illogical type of conversation. And we're also going to simulate, or we're also going to, I guess, practice interrupting. We're going to practice being assertive and being willing to change the direction of the conversation on a whim. So what you're going to do is game as per normal, but make it a point to try and interrupt the girl as much as possible and interrupt the girl with something off topic. So maybe she's talking about, my shoes and my cat and blah, blah, blah. You'd be like, you know what? Football game this Friday is pretty interesting. So you have this team against this team, right? And then she'll be talking about like her family and this and that. You'd be like, it's funny. I've never been to China, right? You just interrupt with something off topic and start talking on that topic. Now you want to stay friendly, stay upbeat, stay positive. Don't make this like some kind of like combative, I hate your topic, you're an idiot kind of thing. But you want to be constantly changing the topic and veering onto different things just for practice. If you want to, you can do this for a whole night. You won't probably have sets where you get really deep connections with the girls, but will get a very good experience of the drill. If you want to do this drill and still have some success over the course of the night, then I'd say focus on doing this for maybe the first 5 minutes of the set, and then after that, do the interaction normally. And then in the next set, do this for the first 5 minutes or so, and then do the interaction normally. Because this sort of changing without any relationship to what's going on is very much an attraction type tactic and early in the interaction type tactic. It doesn't build a lot of comfort or connection. And so if you use it in its appropriate place, you can practice and still get a lot of success while practicing, which is always a nice thing as well. Next exercise is the infield version of the drill, That's a Lie. You'll remember in the at-home version, what you're doing here is speaking with conviction, interrupting, and just talking about whatever you want to talk about in a way that it's not your opinion, it's your truth. Like you're a supercomputer that knows everything in the world. So what you're going to do here is essentially do that same thing in set with a girl. You're allowed to interrupt, you're allowed to go on tangents. Everything you say has to be your absolute truth, right? Absolute conviction what you're saying. And the goal of this exercise actually is you're going to make up the craziest story you possibly can, or the craziest thing you think you can put out there, and try and have a frame so strong, have so much conviction, you can actually get the girl to believe whatever crazy thing you're telling. So the challenge with this drill is try and come up with the craziest story you can get a girl to believe in each interaction. Next exercise, and again, this is an exercise that'll be great for early on in the set. If you do it for too long, it'll sort of kill the set. You'll have a situation if you do this throughout the entire interaction where it'll go really well, really well, really well, and then suddenly badly because you'll be overdoing it. But it's good to find out where that line is, and it's also a good drill to do, in particular early on in the interaction. And what you're going to do is maximum push-pull. So you'll remember we had the push-pull drill in the at-home exercise, which is you give a positive statement then a negative, or a negative and then a positive. So what you're going to be doing in this case is actually in field with a girl, focusing on just having a good conversation, being normal, but as much as you can possibly remember to do so, doing these kind of positive and negative statements. You want to be giving her as many negative and positive emotional spikes as possible to make it just an emotionally stimulating, emotionally relevant conversation for her. And you'll notice when you do this, early on in the interaction, it will get a lot better. It will get a lot more interesting, a lot more fun and funny, and a lot more sexually charged. If you keep doing it for too long, then it'll start to actually make the conversation worse because she won't trust you. So it's good to find out where that line is, because that'll tell you a lot about game and calibration. But when you do this drill, start off just doing it as much as you can, and then when you start finding where that line is, then back it off and try and do it for maybe just the first 5 minutes, first 2 minutes, so that you can actually run a good interaction after doing this maximum push-pull, and then you'll have a really good idea of not only how to get her attracted to you, but also how to transition into a normal conversation afterwards. Next drill, start to qualify the girl as early as possible. Now, we talked in the previous section about what exactly qualifying was, qualifying yourself. That's when you try and prove yourself or try and manipulate someone's perception in a way to make you look better, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, it's whenever you go out of your way because you care about how the person thinks of you. So what you're going to do here is you're going to try and make the girl qualify to you, and specifically, you're going to get the girl to try and tell you why she's cool. So a question you could ask along these lines would be like, oh, you're a pretty girl, but what do you have going for you more than your looks that would make me want to get to know you, right? But that's a very convoluted one. A lot of other ones you could do is, you seem like you're in shape. Are you athletic? Or, you know what, you seem domestic. Do you cook? Or you can be like, wait, do you read? Are you smart? Are you educated? Any of those kind of things. Any question like that that's demanding of the girl and gets her trying to qualify or prove herself to you is what we're looking for here. And what I want you to do in this exercise is try and start doing that as much as possible, but also start doing it very early on in the interaction. Find out how early you can get away with it. Now, there is a thing called social capital, and basically what that means is that they may or may not be ready or willing to open up to you and start qualifying to you right from the very get-go because you may not have earned it yet. But there will be a point where you have, and then they readily will qualify to you. So I want you to find where that point is, but I also want you to just experiment with qualifying in general. I want you to get into the habit of being the chooser and the decider in your interactions as opposed to the one who's selling yourself. Final exercise for hooking, and this is a bit different than some of the others because a lot of the others are something where you're doing something very active and high energy and very provoking. In this case, what you're going to do is you're going to sit back much more. The idea here is that you want to get the girl to chase you. And if you're talking the entire time, she can't talk. She can't fill that silence. And so she becomes sort of a spectator, or she becomes the one being entertained and talked at as opposed to a participant in the interaction. If you can get her talking, you're in a much better position. So what you're going to do in this case is you're going to try and run the interaction with as many pauses as possible. Now, especially early on in the interaction, especially if she doesn't know you, if you just pause too much, it will kill the interaction. Right? But there's a certain point where she's willing and ready to talk, where if you start to pause, if you start to leave some silence for her to fill, she'll start filling that silence, she'll start chasing you, and she'll start gaming you. And that's where you really want to be in game, is not where you're gaming her and she's being okay with it or tolerating it, but where you're actually sitting back and letting her game you. So by allowing the maximum amount of silence into your set, you're going to start that trend. You will occasionally lose some sets practicing this, but it's still very, very useful and very, very important that you do so. Because once you start to learn to attract the girl and get her pursuing you and chasing you without you doing anything, that's when you really have advanced level game.